Hi everyone. I'm going to do my Think Aloud assignment on a book called B for Buster. And this is my son's book. He's 20 now, but he first got this book when he was in 5th grade, and that's when he read it. And he tells me now, he says that this is absolutely his favorite book. My 10th grade son has also read it. Both of them have read it several times, and they really, really enjoy it. It's a book about aviation, which they're both big aviation fanatics. And my older son especially tells me that the scenes of flying in the book are as close to real as possible. I don't know if Iain Lawrence was a pilot or if he knew someone that was a pilot, but he's able to depict what actually goes on in an airplane during wartime very, very realistically. So by looking at the front cover of this, I'm going to assume that this is a war type book. There is a man or a boy down at the bottom. It looks like he's wearing a uniform. And the plane, it's a bomber plane, and I'm not sure what kind of plane it is. To me, it looks like a B-24 or a B-17, and I only know that because I've been to countless airplane museums with my boys, but it doesn't look exactly like an American plane. So if I go to the next page is actually a map, 1943, and if you don't look at the back of the cover, and if you see 1943 and then you look at the front of the book, you can pretty much assume it's during World War II. So this map is great because the book mentions many different cities, and if you're a kind of person who wants to know where these different cities are, you got a map to be able to reference. Also in the back of the book, there's a glossary, which is really helpful because I don't know if Iain Lawrence, I think he might be English, but the setting of the book is actually in England, and there's a lot of English terms that are not familiar to me, and there's a lot of military slang as well, and so the glossary at the back is super helpful. My original thought was to read the first chapter of the book, and then I thought that's going to be too long, and then I tried to cut down just a smaller portion of the chapter, and then my 15 minutes max time of Screen-O-Matic ran up. So now I'm just going to read the last part of chapter 1, so to kind of speed it up along. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Think Aloud, and I'm going to read and tell you kind of what's going on in my brain, what I'm thinking as I'm reading. Also, I don't know if everyone does this or not, but for me, I actually have a movie in my mind. I have a movie of what I'm actually reading. It's almost like I'm not really reading a book, I'm actually seeing a movie. And again, I don't know if that's how everyone sees it, so that's how I'm able to kind of visualize what I'm reading. So let me go ahead and go to the last part. Here we go. So this is going to be on page 9. The very first part of the chapter, let me kind of give you a really quick idea of what the book is about. So it's first person. The narrator, we never find out what his real name is, but we find out that he's from Canada. He's from Kakabeka Falls. And so there's a character at the beginning of the book named Donnie, and Donnie is also from Kakabeka Falls. And he sees the narrator there and is surprised to see him because the narrator is only 16. He's too young to actually be in the military. So he ran away from home. He joined the Canadian Air Force, and now he's in England helping to fight in the war. And he's going to be part of a flight operation. He's actually going to be the radio operator for the bomber airplane that they're going to fly. So Donnie knows that the narrator is only 16, and he refers to him as the Kakabeka Kid. And everyone knows that he's very young. They don't know that he's 16, but they know he's very young. And so the term kid or the kid sticks. So that's what these refer to as the kid. So they've done some flight training, a little bit of nothing in the air, but on the ground. They've done a little bit in the air, not much. And so now they're in England and they're getting ready to fly their first mission. So they're at their outpost, and they're kind of being showed around. They're talking to the CO, which is the commanding officer, and that term is in the glossary in the back. So I'm going to start on page 9 where the first green little arrow is. And you, asked the CO, that's the commanding officer, And you? Asked the CO, nodding at me. I rattled off my usual lies about my poor dead parents and how I'd worked myself through high school. I nearly brought a tear to Uncle Joe with all my nonsense, and I saw sheer pity on the old guy's face. No one in the room, scarcely anyone in the world, knew that I had a drunken old logger for a dad and a mother who cowered from him nearly every night, but loved him in the mornings. So we find out that the kid has a drunk father at home, and we can see why he wants to escape that situation. He has told everyone these lies. Apparently he's pretty convincing because, he's brought a tear to Uncle Joe, who is the CO, and he kind of feels a little bit sorry for him. It was well after dark when we finished. All I wanted was to dash out and look for B for Buster. B for Buster is the name of the airplane that they're going to fly, the bomber airplane. But Uncle Joe sent Will and Simon up to the officers' mess and called for an orderly to lead the rest of us to our Nissen huts. Now, I don't know what a Nissen hut is. I know what a Quonset hut is. I know that it's a half-cylindrical, long building that is used, very common in the military, for barracks. And they're super cheap, super easy to put up. And so I'm going to guess that a Nissen hut is very similar to a Quonset hut. Hop them round to the Iron Lung, he said. Now, when I saw Iron Lung here, I really don't know what they're talking about. I know an iron lung is some sort of respirator, ventilator thing that was used for people when they had polio, but I can't find any reference as far as military slang. My older son was thinking that maybe they're referring to the barracks where they're going to take them, that they're going to sleep, maybe because it's a metal building. I don't know. I'd have to do a lot more research. I did try to do some research, and I couldn't find anything. It was quite a hike across the apron. Apron, I'm not sure what's going on here. Apron is an area. Apron is a paved area next to an airport. It was quite a hike across the apron and over an empty pasture. In the distance, we could see the Halifaxes. That's the bomber airplane that they're going to fly for their missions. That is the B for Buster. Their black painted bodies kind of swallowing the moonlight, but their cockpits and their turrets glowing silver and blue. So Halifaxes are black, so it makes sense that he's not going to be able to see them in the dark. But the cockpits and the turrets where the guns are, where the gunner would sit to fire the guns, those are actually glowing silver. So I'm assuming that they're reflecting the moonlight. They looked wonderful to me, like a flight of great birds come to rest for the night. So he sees them, and you can see that he can see the beauty in the airplanes. Which one's Buster? I asked. Huh? Which one? And when I read that, it seems to me that he's kind of like a kid. I mean, he's only 16, but that's kind of a kid that's excitedly asking a bunch of questions. Which one's Buster? Which one? He wants to see. He's so excited about flying. The orderly kept walking. Who cares, he said. They all look alike in the dark. I felt as small as a squished bug. So he was very excited about the airplanes, and here's this person that it's just an airplane, kid, they all look the same, it's no big deal. And so it kind of hurt him. It kind of crushed his spirit. Then Pop grunted. Cor, he said, you need spectacles, mate. Old Buster's the third from the left. I thought, I'm going to like this old guy. We were taken to a hut that looked just the same as all the others. The beds inside were arranged in 2 rows as straight as graves. So when I saw straight as graves, I thought that was really kind of an odd analogy. Why would the author be using the term graves? But I'm going to just keep reading. Smack in the middle, like a monument in a churchyard, stood a hulking black coal stove. None of the beds had people in them, but it was easy to see which were vacant just by looking at the walls. There was a nearly solid display of pin-up girls and snapshots. At the end of the hut was a picture of Kakabeka Falls, and I knew that Donnie slept below it. Donnie was the character at the very beginning that knows that the kid is only 16. But here and there above beds there were empty spaces where the walls were speckled only with pinholes. I chose the one closest to the door, flinging myself across it with a cry of mine. So there's empty beds, but there's pinholes on the wall. So somebody was there, but the question is, where are they now? So he says, I chose the one closest to the door, flinging myself across it with the cry of, mine. It was a dumb thing to do for someone who was always trying to seem older. So by doing that, he seems like a kid, and now he's thinking, why did I do that? I'm trying to be older. I'm trying not to look like I'm 16. But I did a lot of things like that to the amusement of Lofty and the others. And that makes sense. A 16-year-old, they're still kind of a kid. They're not completely an adult. They thought I was a bit wild, a bit stupid maybe. Buzz's deep laugh brayed through the hut. Then Pop broke into a sprint and flung himself on the bed nearest the stove. And Pop is, he's a little bit older, so he's trying to act like a kid too, which I think it's kind of fun. Then Pop broke into a sprint and flung himself on the bed nearest the stove. Mine, he shouted, acting like a kid. I thought it was lucky that there were 5 of us and 5 empty beds in one hut. But Ratty figured out the truth. Hey, he said, who do you think slept here last? Some other crew, I guess, said Buzz. Yeah, and what happened to them? Asked Ratty. They got the chop, didn't they? They must have. No lie. Now, I don't know what the chop means, but I'm kind of guessing that something happened bad. I don't think they necessarily got transferred somewhere else, but I'm going to keep reading. That was his second favorite expression, no lie. It was as though he thought we doubted everything he told us. But I stretched out on my bed, and I knew he was right. Mine and all the others were empty because a bomber hadn't come home. Our beds didn't only look like rows of graves. That's exactly what they were. So he mentions the term graves again, and so that's exactly what they're saying. So I'm assuming going back to the chop means that the plane crashed, and those guys in the military, they didn't come back. They must have died in the crash. And so their beds truly are graves. So the end of this chapter is, it's kind of sad, and it makes me wonder if that's going to set the tone for the rest of the book. The author, the kid's probably thinking, maybe he's thinking, I'm in my bed now, but am I in a grave? Is that what's going to happen to me? Am I going to get the chop? So if you have a student who is interested in airplanes or any kind of war or military, or if you have a kid that you think might be interested and you're trying to get them turned on to books, this is an excellent, excellent book. There is a lot of jargon in it that sometimes is a little hard to kind of read, but I think you just kind of skip over that just a little bit. But anyway, that is it, because I'm getting ready to run out of time. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you very much.